The Montreal Canadiens ended their losing streak and are hoping to be back on track as they overcome injuries to prepare for the second half of the season. Laura Saba, co-host of Locked On Canadiens, joins us to assess the first half and look ahead at all things Montreal Canadiens.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. Gil Martin, so glad you could join us today. And thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the co-host of Locked On Canadiens, Laura Saba. And Laura, good news for the Habs. They ended their losing streak with a big win over the Blues. How important was it to get back on the winning track for this Canadiens team?
I think a lot of it has to do with Martin St. Louis himself. I think, anybody who kind of is a Montreal Canadiens fan is kind of hoping that they're going to finish with ranked really low because they want a high draft pick in the upcoming draft, where there are a lot of really good prospects. But at the same time, this is a rebuilding team, and part of rebuilding is having your young players get better. But I think in Montreal, there's kind of a little bit more of a unique situation because Martin St. Louis is the head coach of this team. And prior to being hired by the Montreal Canadiens, he did not have any professional head coaching experience or coach it, not even assistant coaching experience, right? So throughout the losing streak, one of the things that we were looking for as not just a podcast, but as a fan base was how does Martin St. Louis adjust, right? This is the first quote unquote adversity, because when he first took over the team, he had a huge impact right off the bat. At the beginning of the season, he was able to make this team play miles above their ability. If you look at the roster and you look at how they played and the results, it was much better than you could expect from the team that they had. But then they crashed back down to earth and then went a little further, right? Their regression was very extreme. So one thing that we kind of thought about was that this is Martin St. Louis' big first test. How does he change things? How does he adjust things? How does he get through to the players all over again? Because he's the kind of coach that players want to play for. He's the kind of coach that brings out a fire in them. But they were kind of, falling off the rails. You ended up in a situation where there were a lot of passengers on the team, and you never want that. Even if you know that 2-3 years down the line, or even after this trade deadline, some of those passengers aren't going to be there anymore. That's not an attitude that you want in your young players. It's not, you don't want a losing mentality. You don't want, you don't want that complacency to set in. So even though the Canadiens didn't win their previous game prior to breaking the losing streak, so we're talking about a 7-game losing streak. And some of those games were blowouts, right? Like they were losing 9-2, it was extreme. It was rough. And so in the last game before, so on Thursday's game against the New York Rangers, you saw some better habits. You saw some better play. You saw an improved underlying numbers. A set of improved underlying numbers. But then against St. Louis, they actually truly did play well. Like you could visibly see them play much better. And they did end up with the win because of it. Their goaltending wasn't there. But in the prior games, they were wilting. They were I don't even want to say they were uninspired. It's not like they weren't trying. It's that they were dramatically failing. And so you wanted to see improvement. And so if you saw Martin St. Louis' face after that St. Louis game where they finally won, the jubilation on his face. And this is one of many tests that he's going to face as a head coach. And we know that this roster isn't where you want it to be as a contender. We know that it is, they're still trying to get rid of some quote unquote dead weight. That's not a great term, but you know what I mean. So it was really, really important for them. But what I thought was more important was, the habits that they exhibited in the Rangers game translated over to the St. Louis game, and even better. So for me, this is a good start. The next game, which is tonight when you're listening to this on Monday night, is against the Seattle Kraken. So again, not a world-beating team, but a team where you're really gonna be able to see if the Canadiens have improved their habits or not. And then the next game on Thursday is against Nashville, which is a team they very recently played within that losing streak. So it's a really telling situation. Like, what does it look like? What do the habits look like? How much better are they playing against Nashville than they were a couple weeks ago, or were, I think it would have been a week and a half ago by that point. So really important. But for me, the most important thing is, what did Martin St. Louis learn and how did he adjust? And so this is test one. There's going to be many tests over the next couple of years.
No question about that. One bright spot for this team all year, Cole Caufield, 23 goals to lead the team. He's kind of a Cy Young candidate, 23 goals, 9 assists. But talk to me about what he's meant to this team this year.
So Cole Caufield is on a line that might be the only line that is generating scoring night in and night out. Again, the expectations for the Canadiens are low, but the line that he's on with Nick Suzuki and often Kirby Dach, once they put Kirby Dach on that other wing, that line really was generating all the scoring chances, all the offense. Like it was really high. And Cole Caufield himself, the way that he's playing is just incredible. Like, he now has 50 goals in 117 NHL games played, right? So it's a lot. It's very fast. It's a lot. He is night in and night out one of the bright spots of this team. And even in some of those blowout losses, even in some of these depressing games that the Canadiens have played off late, you could almost count on it that Cole Caufield's going to give you something to smile about. So for him, that the one surprising thing about Cole Caufield and disappointing thing is that he wasn't the name to the All Star Game. Nick Suzuki's a deserving candidate. He's definitely the captain of the Canadiens, very heavily relied upon by Martin St. Louis in all situations. Like, it's not that he's not a deserving candidate. It's that A, he went last year, and B, Cole Caufield is having a phenomenal season on a bad team. And I think that this would have been a year that he would have been very deserving as a candidate. So obviously on our podcast, we're leading a campaign to get him voted by the fans into the All-Star Game. And I literally think it's because when you look at this team and you try to say, okay, who are the stars of this team? And no question, it's Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield. And there's players on the way, right? Like Kirby Dach or Caden Gooley. Like they're players that you could make cases for, and they're developing really well. But like, objectively speaking, I think Cole Caufield is the brightest spot on this team. And I think, if you look at the history, he's the fastest player to get to 50 goals on the Habs since Richer. So, I mean, that's a lot, right? And then here's the thing too, is that if he wasn't playing under Dominique Ducharme last year, he had 1 goal
right
the entire time, right? If he had been even going at a moderate pace over the course of that season, he would have been the fastest player. So like, if you do the math and you put an average pace for those first 30 something games, and then you put like his production under Martin St. Louis and the previous production under Claude Julien, like if you add it all together, he would have been the fastest player to hit 50 goals since Maurice Richard. Like, it's incredible. So obviously that didn't happen, but I still think that, Cole Caufield is going to have a place. If the Canadiens can get back to contention, if they can get back to a team that's a perennial threat, if they can win a cup, maybe 2, he's going to go in the history books the same, like with the same as those names. You know what I mean? It's a new era for Montreal. It's been a long time since we've seen somebody this exciting on the ice. So I'm always happy to talk about Cole Caufield, and I always want him voted into the All-Star Game.
He is definitely deserving. There's no question about that. Let's see if the Habs fans can help vote him in. Laura, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
So our podcast is Locked On Canadiens. It's available where you're listening to this or on YouTube. So you can subscribe to us anywhere you get your podcast. On Twitter, we're at LO_Canadiens. And you can find me at The Active Stick. You can find my co-host at Scott Matla. Thank you so much, Gil.
All right, Laura, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. And good luck to the Habs the rest of the way.
Thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. Our next partner has a product I literally use every day. I started taking AG1 because I'm not a great pill taker, and I wanted to be able to get all the nutrition I need without having to take 5, 6, 7 pills every day. So what is this stuff? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're getting 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, all these things. And it's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat paleo, keto, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, and it still tastes good. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.